today? Great. So, do you know about the speech? What's the topic today? Beer. Close, right? It's really close. Then I've been talking about the British and American pop culture. Normally, when I introduce our speaker today, I will always put that he's the expert in this field. But if I say that today, that would be totally stand. He's the expert in pop culture, right? But again, that's welcome our speaker today. Well, today I've been talking about the British pop culture. So we have our British representative or English representative here. We have Garnel here, who just arrived yesterday from Leeds, and again from our American speaker, Max, who lived in Taiwan for about 5 years, who knows our culture here. So he's going to show us, two speakers today, going to show us their insight on the pop culture in their country. So let's welcome our first speaker, Garnel Gataura.
Before I introduce myself, can you hear me in the back? Because I'd rather do this without a microphone.
Can you hear me?
Are we okay with that?
Yeah.
Yep. Definitely. If there's any problems, please let me know. My name is, as you can see there, Garnel Gataura. I am no expert on football. I am no expert on beer. I am a maths teacher. I teach maths in England. But I'm not here to teach maths, I promise you. But I must have some background. Because, Dr. Ty would have invited me otherwise. Here's my background. I'm from a place in England called Leeds. That's right up the north. It's very cold in Leeds. That's why we drink a lot. You can see where we're going. Big distance away. I used to work in a pub a long time ago. Years ago, when I was a student, like yourselves, in the summer holidays, I worked in this pub called the Horse and Trumpet. It's a pub I used to drink at, and in the summer I used to work there as well, just to earn some extra money. So I've got a bit of background of working behind the bar as well as drinking in front of the bar, which I'd like to share with you. Now, I'm going to be very brief today. I'm going to give you a bit of a history about the pub culture, where pubs came from, where they are now, and the challenges they face currently. Because everything is not so great as it used to be. But let's go right to the beginning first. This is obviously not anywhere near England. I'm showing you this because I'm reading this book. I don't know if any of you guys read this. It's a great book, Silk Road. And it's about ancient civilizations, where it all started from. So it talks about the Roman Empire, it talks about the Persian Empire, it talks about the old Chinese Empire, the old Indian Empire. And this is where culture and society all originated from. Ideas of education, science, economics. England was nothing like that. England was a very simple, basic place for tribes people. Where all the sophistication down here. Now you can see up there was the Roman Empire. Famous emperor decided to go to Britain. Here was Britain then. A very simple people living in huts. That emperor, as you probably know, was Julius Caesar, was the famous Roman Empire. He invaded vast areas of Europe and also what is now known as the Middle East. He decided that he wanted to invade Britain. So he got his ships and they went to Britain, and these were the British people then. Very simple people, huntsmen, very basic farming. And he went over to Britain and he was disappointed. Because he came over and he saw people with no culture, he saw people with very limited education, no farming, no wealth. He was very disappointed. This is the kind of environment he saw, very, very primitive. So the first thing Julius Caesar did, he ordered that his army built roads. There were no roads in Britain at that time, and he had vast armies that he needed to travel across from the south to the north of England. So they built the roads, and that's one thing those English people are very happy that we were invaded by the Romans because we now have roads. With the roads, they helped transport troops from one end of England to the other, travelling vast distances. Now, as you can imagine, if you are marching from one part of England to the other, you're going to get hungry, you're going to get thirsty. So the Romans created the roads. You can see here there's Londinium, that's the old London, and Mancunium, that's Manchester. They invented a place to drink. Romans were from Italy, they enjoyed wine, so they had started opening places called a tavernia. It's a very simple place where the army would go, the Roman army, and they would have a drink of wine. Now obviously, English people had no idea what wine was. They were very simple people. They used to drink something called ale. If you look up there, ale's a very simple drink made of water, barley and yeast. There below it shows you what beer has in. There's an extra ingredient called hops. But at that time, British people just drank ale. Ale was actually good for you at that time because drinking water wasn't safe. There was very poor sanitation. Water would have germs, it wasn't clean. So alcohol or drinking ale was encouraged as a safe way of staying hydrated. Good to know. So these town areas, I'll go back to here, this is what the Romans brought to Britain. So not only did they produce roads, in a way, they created the first pubs in England. Now, the pubs in England, this acts serving ale, or the tavernarias. And because it's acts serving ale, tavernarias, which is an Italian word, the word slightly changed into the British way of saying things and became called a tavern. So if you ever heard of the word tavern, it originates from the Roman Empire, or tavernaria, to drink wine. Now, because they were travelling great distances, pubs in those days were also places to stay and sleep. So that's why another word we use is an inn. When you think of an inn, it's a place you could stay overnight. So you could go there to drink, to eat, and stay there overnight. And you can see, because we drank ale, they also became known as ale houses. That one there at the bottom, public house, as you can see that without much stretch of an imagination, that's where the word pub came from. Because pubs originally were just houses, houses where people lived, but they were free to serve alcohol to strangers. So a public house or a pub is the extension of somebody's house. Now, when you go to a pub in England, now you will see the name of the pub or individual life, but you see signs. Now this again comes back from early Britain, where people were illiterate, they couldn't read. So signs were very important to distinguish one pub from another pub. And the signs usually related to the royalty, whatever king was in power at that time. So you have things like the King's Head over here. We have Nelson or Captain Kidd, who were famous generals at the time, the 15th century. So the names of pubs represent points in history. Also, they may represent what was going on in that particular region where the pub is. So, for instance, you can see cockfighting over there. It's very vicious sport. That was very popular at the time, and that was an area where cockfighting was taking place, and the pub was named cockfighting. You can see down there the greyhound. That's to do with greyhound racing. We actually race dogs in England, and people bet on it. There's a pub named after that. So pub names represent something historical about the area they are in. Now, pubs became increasingly popular in England. More and more people started drinking and enjoying pubs. But you've got to understand, the pub was somewhere opulent. It was a place people could go and actually have something warm to eat, have something good to drink, actually have a fire in there. So where we have wonderful homes now, they had very basic homes in the old ages. So the pub was a very somewhere to look forward to go to. So as pubs are getting popular, the people in power became concerned. Some people go to pubs, they get drunk, they don't behave very well. Now we had King Edward, see that in 1970, he introduced the first rule to limit the amount of pubs that were available. So he said, one village, one pub. He was very strict about that. That didn't last very long, and you can understand he wasn't a very popular king. And then we had King Henry VII. Now, he introduced a rule because anybody could have a pub. Anybody could open a pub. I could open a pub. So he made sure, if you wanted to open a pub, you have to have a license. And that's where the word license, if you ever go to a pub and you talk about a pub owner, they're called a licensee. They have a license to serve alcohol. So he was the first to introduce that in the UK. Now, as pubs are getting very popular, people were drinking more and more. They wanted to get drunk quicker and also in a cheaper way. So, people would travel great distances to go to the pub. Now, this is very important. This is in the 15th century, how people used to travel from one area of England to another. In a stagecoach. So you'd have a horse, there's a stagecoach. And you can see the people inside, they were usually the richer people. They could afford to be inside the coach. People who had less money and they were travelling around, they would sit on the outside of the coach. See, that's a lot more dangerous. And this is where the concept of first class, second class, business class came from. All from stagecoach hundreds of years ago. And if they would travel great distances, and like the Roman Empire, they would need somewhere to stop and stay and sleep. So pubs, hundreds of years ago, would have separate entrances. So if you were rich, if you were affluent, you would go into a certain entrance and you would sit in the better part of the pub where you could serve really good food and have more of the better drink. If you were poorer, you'd have to go through a different entrance. Here's an example. You won't see many pubs now with separate entrances. Here's a saloon entrance. That's an area for where a different type of person would go. Now that we no longer have separate entrances, but pubs still now in the UK have separate rooms. Not for rich or poor people, but it's just a remnant of that historical aspect. You can see we have a bar here. That would be where, in the olden days, the poorer people would drink. And then you would have a seated room where the richer people would sit and also enjoy it. Again, as I said, that is not the case anymore, thankfully. But if you go into any pub in the UK, you will see two separate parts. Here's an open plan pub. You still have a bar area, but then you also have a separate seating area. So that's something historical from hundreds of years ago. It's still an aspect of pubs today. Now, as I said, as people enjoy alcohol more and going to pubs more, they wanted to get drunk quicker and cheaper. And I love it, I love beer, but if you want to get drunk very quick, you're going to drink spirits. And the spirits at that time that was very popular was gin. Now, gin in the 1750s, you see there, became very popular and the government got concerned because people were now getting so drunk, they were not going to work, they were not doing their daily activities. Gin was classed as the mother's ruin. What it meant by that was that people, the women, who should be looking after their children, were not at home, they were in the pub getting drunk on gin very quickly. So the government became very, very concerned about the social conditions of the UK at that time because of alcohol and introduced very heavy tax on gin. They taxed it so much people stopped drinking gin. There is an example of how the government controlled consumption of alcohol by using taxation, and that still goes on to this day. Now, a big change in the pub happened in the Industrial Revolution, which had a big impact worldwide, certainly obviously in England. Pubs at that time were owned by local people, so if I owned a pub, that was serving a local premise, and it was not beyond that. But as we became industrialised and business became involved, pubs started out collecting picture. Pubs started to have a different model of business. Now I'll explain this to you. A brewery is somewhere, as you probably know yourselves, where alcohol is produced. And here's an example of an old brewery. And a brewery in the olden days would probably be in the local area and serve a few pubs. So a pub in a village would go to a local brewery and get all their beer from there. And this is called a free house structure. So if you're a pub, you can choose which brewery you go to get your beer from. So you're free. Now 50% of pubs in England are still free houses, i.e. they can go to any brewery to choose which alcohol they want to buy, purchase and then sell off. And as we had the Industrial Revolution and we've got a more complex situation produced, breweries started to own pubs. So breweries would open their own pubs, so those pubs only serve their beer. So you've got breweries now not just producing beer, but also controlling pubs. So if you lived in one particular area, you could only get beer from that brewery. But if you lived in a different part of England, and you went to a pub, you'd get beer from that brewery. So limited choice there. What we did get then is where we have what's very popular now in the UK, something called beer time, which is quite controversial. This is where the breweries go directly now on pubs. We have something called a landlord. It's like a landlord in any other environment property. They own the pubs, but they don't provide the beer. They're like the middleman. So they'll get their beer from the brewery, they'll decide which is the cheapest, and then they'll pass it on to the pub owner. Now, let's say you want to own a pub in the situation now in the UK. It'd be very difficult for you to buy a building and get connections with a brewery. What you would do is go to a landlord and say, I want to start a pub. if I'm a landlord, I'll come to you and I'll say, yes, that's fine, but you need to pay me rent. So you pay me rent, and I will give you the premise to sell the beer. But you'd only be able to get the beer through me, you wouldn't have the choice of where you get the beer from. So that's a structure that we have now in the UK. It's quite controversial because some people feel as someone who owns a pub, you are in a way hijacked because you have to pay the landlord rent. And if the landlord increases the rent, you have to increase the price of beer that you sell. So it's quite restrictive. It's quite controversial on this. So if you go to a pub in the UK, here's a pub. Where it says Bass Only, that's not the name of the pub. Pub name is up there where it says Golden Cup Inn. Bass Only is the name of the brewery, Bass. Meaning, if you go to that pub, you will only be able to get beer that's produced by that brewery. Here's another pub. This one's in Birmingham in England, or Queen's Arms. Now this one is owned by a landlord. It's owned by a big company called Mitchell and Butlers. I used to work for them, back in the days. And they restrict what beers they sell because they decide which brewery they want to go at any time, whichever economically is more advantageous to them. So we've got pubs, some are independent, but most are owned by breweries or owned by a company called the landlord. Now, we'll talk about licensing laws. And this is true, for a long period of time in the UK, if you went to a pub, you couldn't drink in a pub on a Sunday. Again, that was because the church were very unhappy with the amount of time people were spending in the pub, getting drunk and not going to church and respecting their religious duties. So a law was passed that all pubs would be closed on Sunday. And it stayed that way for a long time. Another law that was introduced in the early 20th century was, you can see there, restricted opening hours. Now that was, does anybody know what happened major in Europe around 1914? World War I, exactly. So because of World War I, the government was concerned people would not focus on the main battle. So they closed pubs down for a limited period of time to stop people from getting drunk and not doing their duties in serving the country. And because of that, I remember when I was young, my father would go to the pub, he would go there at 2 o'clock, he'd drink for 40 minutes, and then the pub would close, and he would have to come home, wait, and go back to the pub in the evening at 6:30. It's absolutely strange. So eventually that law was changed in the late 80s, where pubs were allowed to open from 11 till 11. And then you can see there, I've got something called last orders. Now that's something very, very unique, where as it got very close to 11 o'clock, the bar owner would ring a bell and would shout last orders. And that was for 15 minutes before 11 o'clock. So that would inform the people drinking that if you want to buy another drink, you need to buy it now, otherwise I won't be able to serve you after 11 o'clock. So that's last orders. If you're going to pub, it's still said by the bar owner. Last orders, get your last drink in, because I'm not going to serve you after 11 o'clock. This led to something which is, if you're old enough in England, you might be past, it's something called a lock-in. If you wanted to carry on drinking after 11 o'clock, you couldn't, because legally you weren't allowed. If I was a pub owner and I carried on serving alcohol after 11 o'clock, I would lose my license. What I could do was have something called a lock-in. It basically is a private party. Because remember, pubs are houses. Okay? Somebody lives there, somebody pays rent to stay in the house, so they would stay there overnight. So the pub owner could lock the door after 11 o'clock, close all the tills, and have a private party. So could carry on serving under the premise that he was not making money. So he could say, well, I'll carry on giving you drinks because you're my friend. You're a customer I trust. That's not actually what really happened. The customer would still carry on giving money, but not in the till straight into the pocket. So it was a roundabout way of avoiding losing your license. We are in a position now, though, in the UK, where pubs are allowed to open for 24 hours. That law, you can see, was changed in 2005. One of the main arguments for that was the pubs felt it was very unfair that people would leave a pub at 11 o'clock and then go to a nightclub. It's in a nightclub, they could carry on serving alcohol all through the night. And they felt it was an unfair advantage to nightclubs. So the government did that just to balance things out. In reality, very few pubs are open for 24 hours because you're just not going to get that much business to justify paying someone to serve behind the bar. Now, let's get that. Here's what I would call, maybe your mind, but certainly my mind, what a typical pub in the UK wood is very popular. That comes back from hundreds of years ago when pubs were made out of wood. You just put a panelling in it, and that maintains that tradition to this day. When you go to a pub, what you'll notice is at the bar you have taps. Tap to hold pints. Further behind the bar, on the top shelf, you'll have the spirits. So your whiskey, your brandy, your gin, and your wine. Behind the bar, there will also be a fridge, and that will also be having beer. Some people prefer their beer in bottles. So that's typical how a bar will be. And you have some men sitting on a bar stool at the bar. It can be quite intimidating when you go to a pub for the first time and you're not local. And you see all these people and you're like, oh gosh, you're going to speak to them. Now, that was me. That's not me there, but that would be me when I was working at a bar, just waiting for a customer to serve a pint. And when you serve a pint, you pull a pint. It's typical how a pint is pulled. It's actually hand pulled. The pressure is exerted and it pulls the alcohol from casks underneath in the cellar, up into these pipes, coming out there to the tube and pulling a pint. Now, pulling a pint is a skill. It looks really straightforward, like switching on a tap, but it isn't. Pulling a good pint takes years of practice, I know, having worked behind the bar. And people will complain, customers will complain if you don't pull a good pint. Let me give you an example. That too, there's two pints of beer there, look very similar. But as you can see, the one on the left has more alcohol than the one on the right. That's because the one on the right hasn't been pulled as well, and too much gas has gone in. You have something there called a head. Now, when that head disappears, that will have less alcohol in it. It won't turn into alcohol. So if you're a paying customer, you will feel cheated. So if ever you go to the UK and you order a pint and you get a big head, you are allowed to go back to the bar and say, excuse me, can you top that up, please? The barman will top it up with some more alcohol. You have to be perfectly right. Because, and it's not the best picture I can find, it's actually a terrible picture. But that's an empty pint glass. It's not full of vodka, that's an empty pint glass. You can see there's a line just up there, and it's a pint. That's so legally they have to serve your pint in the glass. So you can see if the barman or barwoman has actually given you a pint. And if it's below that line, that's the top. Now, what are pubs like? Well, besides obviously going into a bar and stuff that we saw there, pubs are where people relax. And you can play certain sports there. Pool is very popular. It's different from American pool. Pool is really most pubs you go to, you can see a pool table, maybe two pool tables. You also see, you can see there in the top corner a dartboard. Okay, throwing darts. Now I have always found this one amazing, that pubs, a place where you drink alcohol, are also places where you can play games that require intense concentration. It doesn't quite make sense to me, especially when you're throwing darts, which is quite dangerous, very sharp ones. Now darts is synonymous with drinking alcohol. Darts started in the pub. It's now taken seriously in the UK as a serious sport. It's a major competition. This is the William Hill Darts Final Championship. Sorry it's very dark there, but they're playing darts at Farrell. What you probably noticed is the people are probably not bothered watching the darts, they're too busy drinking. So the darts final in the UK is just an extension of a very big pub. People go there ready to drink alcohol. The darts that they're watching is just secondary, something on the background. But there's somewhere where a sport has become popular because its origination is in the pub. It continues to keep that people drinking alcohol, even in the World Final Championships. Now, another thing you'll find in the pub, and I was speaking to my wife about this, it's a fruit machine, a gambling machine. You put money in, and you take a gamble, and hopefully you'll win some. And most times you probably don't. Every pub up and down the line in England, you'll see a gambling machine. Again, I feel this is exploiting drunk people. You have a few drinks, you feel a bit lucky, you put some money in, and it never comes back out again. But you'll see that in every fruit machine. But ultimately, what pubs are, it's not a place to play pool, it's not to play darts. It's a place to socialise. This is why pubs are very key to British culture, because it's an area where people come together and create a community vibe. Every village, every street, every city has a pub which is there for the people of the locality. It brings people together. What someone's described it to me as, it's pre-internet. It's where you get all the information from. You go to the pub and you find out what's going on in your community, people talk and then gossip. It's where you make new friends. And that's why pubs are held very dear to British culture, because it's says something about us as people, that willingness to be able to mix together, to make new friends. Obviously, drinking alcohol helps people mix together. It's a wonderful environment. Now, let's talk about the kind of people you meet at pubs. Now, this is not at all exhaustive, but when pubs have been going on for so long, there's certain characters you will meet at the pub. Now, if you, this sounds really obvious, but if you are a regular at a particular pub, you are loyal to that pub. So the one down your street that you always go to, you are classed as a regular. Regulars keep businesses running, pub businesses going. You are loyal to that pub. You would feel uncomfortable, you would feel cheating if you went to another pub. You'd be like, I have a wife, but I go to another girl first. Now, I won't go into that. So you look very, very particular to your pub. And you are a loyal customer. Over here, I'm going to skip this, you have someone called an all-dayer. Now, that's not a regular. That's someone who really has nothing else to do. They're probably unemployed, they may be an old-age pensioner, and they feel lonely. You'll see them at the pub sat on their own, maybe just drinking a newspaper. They'll buy 1 pint and make it last for 3 hours. It's an amazing skill. And you see them sat in the pub all day. They're not loyal to that particular pub. They could go to another pub and just spend all their time there. So it's just a community. It's just for them to be with other people. Now, no one else usually knows people. I'm sure you have this everywhere. You have a pub bar. Every pub you go to, there'll be someone there who thinks he knows everything. Knows everything about what's going on in the world, knows everything about history. And they'll just come up to you with their pint in hand and just start a conversation with you. But it won't be a particularly engaging conversation because there'll be one way with them talking to you. Why did I come into this pub? Every pub seems to have one of them. Unfortunately, every pub also has alcoholics, which is not a surprise since they serve alcohol. You'll have somebody, a pub opens up at 11 o'clock, they'll be there at 10 o'clock in the morning, just waiting. This pub comes open, and they go in, and all they're interested in is not to talk to people, not to socialise, it's just to get drunk as quick as possible. Now, something that's very particular to English culture is the lads. Young men, like some of you in here, who have just left university, now earning, and they're out enjoying their life. You'll always see them in big groups going to pubs, very loud, very brash, and all their target is to drink as much pints as possible. It's a very macho thing to go to, let's say we went to a pub of 3 and I said, I had 7 pints, and you go, that's nothing, I had 10 pints. And then you guys say, well no, I had 12 pints. It's something to boast about. It's like part of growing up to be able to drink a lot of beer and have a big stomach, okay? It's very straight. So these kind of characters that you'll see. There's much, much more, but I just wanted to give you the types that you see in pub. Now, I want to talk about some terminology that you might hear in pub. One here is about being barred. Now, it comes from the word, obviously from the word bar, where you are no longer allowed to come into a pub. Now, if you are antisocial in a pub, and let's be honest, after you have a few drinks, that's likely to happen. The pub owner could say, right, I'm no longer allowed you into my pub. You cause too much distress, too much problems, you are barred. Once you are barred, your photo goes up and you will never be served again. What pubs do now is they work together. So if you are barred from one pub, they share that information and you will not be allowed to go in the other pub. So that's their way of controlling the behaviour of people going to. So they go over. In reality, very few people do get barred because at the end of the day, you're a paying customer and they want your money. So they probably tolerate a lot of this behaviour. Another word that I haven't put up here because I wasn't trying to share it is the word about getting pissed. Now, if you drink a lot, you are said to be pissed. Now that comes from the word, English slang word, to piss. To piss is to go to the toilet. It's to do what we call a number one, the liquid form of going to the toilet. If you drink a lot of alcohol, you will obviously invariably go to the toilet a lot. So therefore you are pissed. So if ever you go to England and get someone that pissed, it's still the fact that they drank too much alcohol. Now, another thing that happens a lot, especially young people, is something called a pub crawl. Now, I've talked about people being regulars, loyal to the pub, but there are other people who really enjoy going from one pub to another in one day. So they start in the morning, and this is a pub crawl in Leeds. So in major cities you have big calls. In university campuses there are lots of, I know there's not many around here, but in England there's lots of pubs around university campuses. And what students or young people usually do is they would start at the pub, see up there, and they will go to every single pub and drink a pint, and then go to another pub and drink a pint. You can see here, this person here did every single pub there for 90 pints of alcohol. I don't know about you, if I have 5 or 6, I can't see anymore. How they would do 20 pubs, you know what I mean? They would get a ticket like this, each piece of paper, and each pub they would go to and have a pint. The person there at the pound would stamp it. So that'd be like, you know, evidence that you achieved it. Very few people can manage that pub. But that's something that young people, especially people at university, enjoy doing. It's something that they're proud of, like passing their degree. Like it's pub crawl as well. I went to 20 pubs at that time. Now, everything is not rosy in pub culture. Okay? I'd be lying to you if I said it was. Drinking excessively is something that happens a lot in England, beyond just socialising. Liver disease is one of the biggest killers in the UK. We have the most issues with heart disease and liver disease than any other country in Europe, because people drink in the UK to get drunk, and they do get rowdy. You might have seen some of these pictures in the newspaper or what happens in the UK on a Friday or Saturday night. People will go to a pub around 5 o'clock in the afternoon or 4 o'clock after work and drink all the way till 11 o'clock at night and become extremely drunk, and it causes a lot of issues for the police. It causes a lot of issues for the hospitals. We're dealing with people on a Friday and a Saturday night because of drunken behaviour. It's got to such a level now that the government is even thinking about hospitals no longer dealing with people who are drunk on a Friday and Saturday night because it's classed as self-inflicted damage because of your alcohol level, because of you getting into fights. You're responsible for that. Us as taxpayers, you can have a good night, but we should have to bail you out in the evening. So that's a debate that's going along in the UK. People are drinking too much. Behaviour does need to change. Now, contrast that with somewhere like Europe. I've been fortunate enough to go to places like France, Spain and Italy. They do have a drinking culture, but they don't drink to get drunk. They drink with food. So it's almost like a restaurant environment. They'll sit down, they'll have a glass of wine, they'll drink it slowly, but they'll eat at the same time. There's people who go to a pub in England and don't eat food, and they just drink. So you can see why there's a big contrast with how civilized it is in Europe, but how different it is in the UK when it comes to drinking, the whole attitude and approach to it. Now, things are not going so well in the UK. Okay? But before I go to that, if you ever go into the UK and have a drink, there's certain things you do need to be aware of, and I'm using this opportunity to share with you. Now, one is, when you go to the pub, don't expect to be waiting on. So don't go to the pub and sit down and expect somebody to come to you and say, what drink would you like? You need to go to the bar and order a drink. Okay? And that might seem obvious to me, but when I used to work in the pub, the amount of foreign students I've seen who came in and just sat down and expected me to go to there. It's unbelievable. But I can understand that. It's a very physical thing to go to a pub and order a bar. When you go to the bar, you don't need to go, oh, you come over here, come serve me. Okay? What we do as bar people is we look for eye contact. I can see, I've got it mentally, I can see who's turned up, and I can see who came in first, who came in second, who's third, and you will be served. So just walking up to the bar is enough for you to put an order. The second thing we do is, if you are in with groups of people, so you go with friends, we order in rounds. So again, I'm bringing these three gentlemen into this conversation. If we went together out for a drink, you would buy a drink for all 4 of us. You'd go to the bar first, buy 4 drinks. Then after we had our 4 drinks, it would be your turn, then your turn, and then my turn. That's called buying rounds. You don't, if you're with a group of friends, you don't buy your own drink. It's a social thing, and we share purchasing it together. What you definitely do not do, though, is miss around. So again, if you buy the drink, and I buy the drink, then you buy the drink, you buy the drink, you buy the drink, you buy the drink, and it's my turn, and I walk out that door, that socially is not acceptable. That's a deal breaker. You will no longer have friends if you do that. So make sure you do the rounds, you pay for the rounds. I think it's a very, very civilized thing to do in a pub. Next thing, believe me, this is true. If you're in a bar and you spill someone's drink in the UK, it is courteous for you to say, I'm sorry, I've spilled your pint. You then buy them a drink. Okay? You can't spill someone's drink and say, oh, sorry, I'll move on. Buy them a drink. Otherwise, you could end up in a fight. I am not joking, okay? Please buy a drink. And finally, well, not finally, but this was from me actually. This is from me when I used to be behind the bar. If you have a drink and finish the drink, it is courteous to go to the back and to hand back that empty pint glass. You don't have to, but it's seen as a sign of respect because the person behind the bar is also the person who collects the empty drinks and they can be very busy. So doing that is very courteous. And the last one for you on this one is you don't have to tip. You tip in restaurants, but you don't tip in pubs. What you do though, if you're not happy with your service, what you do say is, can I buy you a drink, please? Now what you are doing is you're not actually buying the bar person a drink. He's not going to say thank you, pull a pint and start drinking himself. But what they will do is, they will take the money that you offered them, the drink, and put it in a jar. So that's the way they tip it. And you say, can I buy you a drink, please? And that's the coded word for here's your tip. Now, here's a depressing sign. It's pubs closing down in Britain. Yes, it's part of our culture, but it is struggling. And you can see there, from the peak of 1980, how almost getting to about 20,000 pubs were closed down. At the moment, 25 pubs a week are closing down in the UK. It's not as profitable as it used to be. And there's lots of reasons for that. One reason is drinks in pubs are heavily taxed. Two, pubs are competing now with supermarkets that are open 24 hours a day and sell alcohol very cheap. So people now prefer to drink alcohol at home because it's cheaper. Plus, pubs in the old days were a wonderful place to go to because people were generally poor, didn't have great housing. But now we have wonderful housing, we have the internet at home, we have entertainment. There's less reason to go out to the pub to enjoy a drink. Another big factor was smoking ban. You used to be able to smoke in a pub. People like to drink and smoke at the same time. It goes hand in hand. So when the government introduced the smoking ban in public places, people who like to smoke stopped going to the pub because they could smoke in that environment. And that had a huge effect on businesses and pubs. And one of the reasons is just people just generally now have more things to do. In the old days, the pub was everything. Now people have more options to do things in their own time. Pubs haven't completely lost money, so they are struggling. So how they fight it back? Well, pubs now, and I've told you how pubs, people go there just to drink. Pubs now realising they need to get different clientele. Pubs now serving food, very good quality food. You would never take someone in the olden days to a pub to have something to eat. You really wouldn't. You certainly wouldn't take someone who were dating or taking family to the pub. Now, pubs serve excellent food, restaurant quality food. In fact, some pubs have Michelin stars that are really highly rated for the kind of food they deliver. So pubs now are now reforming themselves to something like this. Now, that's a completely different picture to what I showed you earlier. This is nothing like a pub. It actually does look like a restaurant. But that actually is a pub. But people now go there to take their children, take their wives, take their families, and it's a much more civilized environment. And finally for me is what's served in pubs. Pubs generally serve lager. And people now get bored of lager because it's pretty bland. What pubs are doing now is they are serving, we're going back to the olden days of when we used to serve ale, beer, much more distinctive flavours. A bit like that wine. People enjoy wine. Enjoy drinking wine. They try to pick out different flavours in it. Whereas with lager, it's a very bland drink. It all tastes the same. Ales are much more distinctive. You can have ales that taste like coffee. You can have ales that taste like chocolate. You can have ales that taste very dark, some that sweet, some that bitter. So people are now going back to pubs, not to become drunk, but to enjoy the flavours of alcohol itself. So that's one big thing there. That's really changed. So. That's it from me. So pubs are wonderful places, but they are struggling at the moment. I was thinking of one last thing to leave you all with. The one I'm going to leave you with is the one that I've always, it's always been with me. And it's this one. I'll learn this anyway. I drink to make other people more interesting. Thank you very much. So if you drink too much alcohol, how can you drink around? That is a very, very good question. Young man said here, if I can only drink a certain amount of alcohol, how can I do rounds and keep up with other people? That's a very good question. Now, obviously, people do give pints, but you do get half pints. So, if your friends like to drink a pint, you get a smaller portion. Your friends would probably think you're a girl, but that's not it. You can do that. That's a very good. But on another point, that's also social pressure, isn't it? Because your peers are drinking at a fast rate, and you're having to keep up with them. So you might also drink at them, even though you don't want to be with your friends. You keep at the same rate. You're ruining yourself out. Yeah. With alcohol, believe me, there's a lot of social pressure, especially in the UK, to keep up with somebody else's drinking speed. Okay, so, yeah, it's a negative of that. You're absolutely right. Any more? Yes.
You mentioned that now pubs provides food.
Yes.
So how can we distinguish the restaurant and pub? It's like
It's a very good question. I think now it's becoming indistinguishable. There are places that I think that look like pubs. I go in and it'd be very difficult for me to get a pint. They actually want to serve alcohol. So it's a very good point. Those places, that pubs, that are more like restaurants, they are called gastropubs. Gastropubs. So they're more market. You probably can't tell. They probably have where a pub on the outside, you really can't see inside. Those that are gastropubs have big open windows so you can see people inside eating. So it invites you in.
Any more question?
Oh, well,
Yeah,
we're in
Max?
trouble. Right, yes, Max.
You mentioned that pubs often select based on cheapness, like on the market value of the ale or beer.
Yes.
In America, it's common for like unique flavors or like certain qualities to be prized. Is that the case as well at certain pubs?
Do you know what, Max? You went out at that very point that I mentioned that. You talked about the decline of pubs. And pubs are now having to think about a different clientele. So they are now selling craft beer in pubs at a higher price to get a different type of clientele. You go to pubs to enjoy the flavour of it rather than just to get drunk. So you're absolutely right. That's involved in all of it. A positive one out.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now, let's move on our second speaker, the American representative, Max, come here to give his insight of the pop culture in America.
Hi. Should be okay. Okay. So, my name is Max. People in Taipei mostly call me Max Power. We're going to talk today about American bar culture, or at least I'm going to talk about American bar culture. We're also going to talk a little bit about etiquette and some different things that you can do or maybe not do at American bars. First thing, people often say that America is a melting pot. Has anyone heard this expression before? Yeah. What does that mean? Can someone tell me? This picture kind of represents the idea, but it means, anybody?
It's racist.
It talks about races, it talks about ethnicities, it talks about cultures. The term comes from smelting, or melting metal, and melting metals being mixed to make something new. The idea actually expresses harmony. So it talks about how we've got a mix of many cultures and ethnicities, people from all sorts of different places and backgrounds And we're going to touch on this later, and how the American bar, just like the bar in England, actually a little more so than the bar in England, is the great equalizer. By the way, you probably already noticed, in America, we usually don't call it a pub. We call it a... What? A bar. We don't go down to the pub, we go down to the bar. Okay, quick note, different cultures will drink different things at different times for different reasons. First thing, different drinks for different occasions. For example, let's say you really like to drink champagne. If you break out the champagne, if you pop bottles, people will be asking, what are you celebrating? What are we celebrating? You're pretty much guaranteed. What about wine? When do we drink wine? Some special occasions where we might drink wine but not beer, for example. Anybody? Dates? Yeah. If you're a classy guy. I like your style. What about weddings? Weddings traditionally have wine, maybe not beer. Now you might have what's called an open bar, where you get like mixed drinks or mixers or whatever you like, but traditionally, wine. For a long time. Okay. So right now in America, in my experience, and in relationship to like the people I know who like to drink, we like craft beer. We don't really like the standard American drinks that much. For example, there's Budweiser, which was rebranded to America for a little while over the summer. I think of this year or last year they called it America. So people might say, oh, let's go down to the store and get some America. I have a more optimistic view of the quality of America. I don't personally recommend this beer. Another one that's really popular is Pabst Blue Ribbon, which is really popular with hipsters. What's a hipster? Anybody? Come on, guys. Someone knows what a hipster is. Don't want to give yourself away, eh? Okay, so hipster is like kind of like a hip young person in like the current style. Maybe they have like, if it's a guy, maybe they have like a beard, and maybe they listen to like really cool music, and maybe they give really neat lectures at colleges in Taiwan to smart students. Okay, so bars in America mostly have awful names. Like in England, you get like the Boar's Head, you get like the Trident, you get like the King James's Head, or something, you know, something really amazing sounding and dramatic. And in America, it'll be like Dave's Bar, or just bar, or lounge, or like my father is a musician, so he's in bars often. He has very specific tastes in bars. His favorite bars are called Tucker's and Betty's Battalion in our hometown. So this is Napoleon House, which is my favorite bar in America in terms of like history. It's been there a long time. Does anyone know about New Orleans, about where it is? Maybe about the French Quarter? It's one of the only places in America it's legal to drink on the street. So it's very exciting. But Napoleon House, it's a really old bar in New Orleans in the French Quarter, which is a very special place. There are lots of famous stories and local legends and really wonderful things. A certain kind of person, especially someone who likes jazz music, like my father who's a jazz musician, really likes New Orleans. Okay. Oh, quick note. One more thing about culture. Some spirits are related to cultural identity. For example, Mexicans really favor tequila. And Irish might favor whiskey or Guinness. Although some of my Irish friends tell me that the Irish favoring Guinness is marketing. Okay, so characteristically, drinking is a social act. It's something we do at social times and social settings. We do it at special designated places, okay? In America especially. You can't just like go drink in the park unless you brown bag it. What does it mean to brown bag it? Exactly, you get it at the store and they put it in a brown bag for you. So you can drink it at the park and not get bothered by the fuzz. What's the fuzz? The police. Don't tell anybody I told you that. Okay. So, it's like a social interaction and bonding thing. Like Mr. Singh said, it's really a wonderful way to maybe make some friends if you don't overdo it. Okay, so, in America, bars have like a long and storied history. Raise your hand if you know about, say, the Boston Tea Party? Anybody? 2 people? 3 people? Guys, come on, hands up. Come on, don't be shy. So, the Boston Tea Party is when England was still in control of America, right? And there was a great tax on tea. So the Americans came and took all the tea and threw it in the ocean. That was planned at this bar, called the Green Dragon Tower. Is this what it looked like at the time? No, that building was burned down in 1847. But this was called the headquarters of the Revolution. The Sons of Liberty planned the Boston Tea Party here, which later went on to ignite what? The American Revolution. Okay. So, other quick note. Another thing was that's an example of something that got started in pubs would be the Stonewall Revolution. Excuse me, the Stonewall Riots, which was a major movement for LGBTQ, so people in like the homosexual community, people in the transgender community, to start rioting and demonstrating in favor of rights. The term LGBTQ, does anyone know what it means? Can someone raise their hand, maybe explain? Lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer. Did that term exist in 1969? No. So that particular set of riots and demonstrations started in a bar. A lot of things do in American history. And probably any history, actually. You know, you go in, you get liquored up, your friends' ideas start sounding real good. Okay, so we're going to talk about bar etiquette. This is a picture from my favorite movie about bars, The Shining. So, to start, bars in America first functioned as community centers. And part of what enforced this is that alcohol could only be sold at a certain maximum price. The price of beer, the price of alcohol, was legally prescribed. So you had to sell at the price by law, which means everyone's paying the same price for their drinks. So you'll have people from different classes. What are classes? Different social classes. Like the aristocracy or upper class, the bourgeoisie or middle class, the proletariat or working class, right? Working, maybe drinking together in the same place. Because of that, there are lots of different rules and courtesies and etiquettes that are special to American bars, which we're about to go kind of in depth into. So sit down, relax, and take notes. Okay, so traditionally the bar is a place for sharing news and discussing it. I'm pretty sure this is also the case in England. It's a good place to go and hear some information. Traditionally speaking, it's considered very poor form to pull rank at a bar. What does it mean to pull rank? It means to talk about your qualifications. So for example, if you're a professor of law, if you're a judge, if you're a lawyer, if you're a historian, if you're a taxi cab driver, you leave it at the door when you go into a bar. It's considered really poor form to pull rank in a bar. This is because it creates a more socially integrated environment where you might meet people you don't normally talk to. You might make some new friends. You might visit outside your social cast. Okay. When you're talking in a bar, you want to use kind of like standard eye contact. So that is to say, you'll be expected to make some eye contact. Maybe not too much if you don't know someone that well yet. That could maybe get you into a fight or a little bit of trouble. But it's good to use eye contact well in a bar because you're going to be meeting strangers probably. Bars in Taiwan, I've never quite been able to figure out what the deal is, but when I go to bars in Taiwan, they really don't feel right to me. Something about it is just unsettling. It's like, I'm not sure how to explain that. It's like someone came to Taiwan who had seen a bar but not been inside and described it very carefully. And someone was like, ah, yes, this is what a bar is like. It's like trying to explain to someone what a taco should be like if you've never been to South Texas or Mexico. Okay, so eye contact. Next thing, shaking hands. If you go into an American bar, be ready to shake some hands. Do you guys know how to shake hands? Feel good at it? It's an important skill for going to the West, okay? If you give a bad handshake in America, people will not trust you. They'll think you're weird. But the good news is, it's really easy to do a good handshake. You want to make sure your hand's like right in there, and make sure they feel a little bit of pressure. You're good. If you present your hand like this, or if you do like, the really common one I see when I'm teaching is sometimes the finger squeeze. Don't do that. That's bad. Okay, so some basic other things like if you're sitting in a group at the bar, something people often overlook is if you're sitting with 3 people, don't sit in a row. You should have like one friend here, 1, 2 at the bar. Okay? Someone's got to take point on the triangle. Otherwise, it's awkward. You'd be amazed at how many people don't know this. Sometimes I go into bars, I want to like give a lecture there. Okay, so next thing, currency. In America, we tip. We tip a lot. I hope you like tipping, because if you go to America, you're going to pay some tips. What's the standard amount for a tip? It's gone up. It used to, when I was younger, like maybe when I was, let's say like even 10 or 15 years ago, it would be 15%. And before that, maybe 10%. But now it is 20%. The economy is not doing that well. Waiters and waitresses and bartenders and the like, they might not be getting paid as much as they used to. So the customer is expected to pick that up in true American tradition. Generally speaking, at a bar, you can also kind of default to $1 per drink if you need to round up. For example, if you're getting drinks that cost like $3, $4 gin tonics, maybe you'll tip $1 to the barkeep per drink. Okay? Another thing about respecting the barkeep is learn their name. You'd be amazed at how many people don't do this. If you learn the names of the people who are serving you, they really like you. They remember you. They remember what you ordered. They smile when you see you. Other thing is bring cash. A lot of people come to bars, they don't bring cash. Bring cash. You might open a tab using your credit card. What's a tab? Pay when you leave. So you check out, you have like, you give them your card, and they ring up your purchases. If you open a tab, you want to be really clear about what you're paying for. Because otherwise, at the end of the night, you might find that your tab has grown by a lot. Especially if you drink with English teachers. Okay, so special etiquette for bars. A bar coaster on the glass, like take your bar coaster. What's the bar coaster? It's a piece of paper, like the little round thing they give you to drink with, right? If you take it and put it on top of your glass, it means you're coming back if you step outside. So if you step outside to smoke, or step outside to do anything, or to leave for a moment, put your coaster on top of your glass, and people know that you're there. On the other hand, if you see a beer with a coaster on top of it, don't sit there, and certainly don't drink it. Unless you're really sneaky. Let me put it like this. Don't get caught drinking it. Okay, so, when do we toast? Anytime? That's a good time to toast, is anytime. Are there any other specific times we toast, like congratulating someone? Oftentimes you can make peace with a toast, right? Like if someone in the bar really wants to beat you up, and your friends come and they're like, no, Max, come here, don't beat this guy up. And his friends come and they're like, no, don't beat this foreigner up, he's a dork. And then afterwards you're on your sides, you can go over and toast. And it will seal the feud. Because if they are still grumpy about it after that, it looks bad. They lose face. This is very useful, remember. It might save you from having your kidneys kicked. Can you toast with water? Most Americans actually don't know this, so if someone doesn't know this, don't tell them. But you should never toast with water, it's bad luck. Okay, so. In the American South, bar manners are more specific, more necessary, and a little more involved. Does anyone know why? We call it a culture of honor, sociologically speaking. So, in the South, people are a lot more sensitive to respect and manners. sometimes. Or at least more sensitive in a way that you might see immediately, or at least feel, possibly on your face. So, in the American South, it's important to do certain things that you might do anywhere, but it's a little more important to remember them in the South. Like, a gentleman holds the door for ladies. Okay? You need to go outside or move away when you get a phone call. You'd be amazed at how many people miss this at bars, and it doesn't go over super well. In Taiwan, have you ever seen that? It's one of my favorites. Okay, so you guys don't smoke, right? No one here smokes, right? Smoking is, I hear it's really bad for you. So don't smoke, please. But for people who are not here, I'm sure, who do smoke, you want to go about 15 feet away from the door when you smoke. So in some places that's legalized, and in some places smoking inside is totally banned, like in California, which, like Mr. Singh said, has really hurt business there. What about, are there any other things with smoking that might upset someone? In America, in most places, first off, do we still smoke inside in most places in America? Not really. It's pretty much past. You see it more often in Taiwan, really, than you would in America. Something interesting, Mr. Singh mentioned that English bars will be divided into two sections. In America, let's say 20 years ago, if you walked into a bar and it was divided into two sections, what did that mean? I heard a whistle. Smoking and non-smoking. Sometimes we call that the smoker's cage. Usually you can tell there might be like a plastic wall between the two places, and sometimes the furniture in the smoker's cage isn't as good. Okay, so it's important to get about 15 feet away from the door, at least. You see people smoking by the entrance sometimes. If your friends do this, it's a good idea to gently guide them away. I do this on occasion, though I don't smoke them. I just kind of move them around like a shepherd. So the other thing is, if it's a crowded area, you should ask if it's all right. But none of you do that, so I know it won't be a problem. Okay, so in Taiwan, people dress in a way sometimes in bars that might kind of get you in trouble in America. Does anyone know what that might be? So in Taiwan, people often wear more revealing clothes. Like clothing that is like smaller, skimpier, maybe that like shows more of your body. Is that okay with me? Yes. It's not what I mean by that is, I'm not personally condoning or not condoning it either way, okay? Like it's cool, you should dress in the style that you like. You should dress in the way that you feel comfortable. But in an American bar, or in many places in America, dressing in a certain way can get you in trouble. Someone might kind of be more aggressive with you, for example, if you're dressed a certain way. And for a man, that can be part of blending in, because men are admittedly much less at risk when they show skin. But it's something important to keep in mind, because you can get attention that you don't want, and you can wind up in a scene that you don't want. Does that make sense? Okay, so if someone offers to buy you a drink in an American bar, what should you do? Has anyone here ever been bought a drink in Taiwan, like by a stranger? Anybody? Show of hands, nods, any kind of sign whatsoever? Good grunt. Because it seems to me like in Taiwan that doesn't happen as much. But in America, if you're a lady and you go to a bar, someone's going to buy you a drink. There are songs about it. So if someone buys you a drink, what should you do? What do you deal? Okay, well you can take it. You probably should take it, in fact. That's cool. That's totally fine. Are you obligated to talk to someone or do anything because you accepted the drink? Not really. But to take a step back for a moment, it's perfectly fine to say no thanks. And it's perfectly fine at the same time to say, oh, I have a boyfriend. I'm attached. Usually if you're a guy, I'm not trying to be like, like more favoring one side than the other, but usually guys don't have this problem for some reason. I haven't been bought a lot of drinks in my life by women, but it has happened. So, if someone buys you a drink and you accept it, you should maybe make a little conversation. You can talk to them a little bit. Do you need to tell them about your personal life, or do anything other than that, or do anything at all? No. But it's polite to make a little conversation. But that would be often interpreted as what's called a pickup. What's a pickup? Cruising through town picking up babes. No. A pickup is like trying to make an opening. Like trying to make an open, to talk to someone, an approach. So, it's really easy to be neutral. You can buy a drink back for them if you like, especially if you want to make it clear that you're just being friendly and that you kind of just want to like chill. This is what's called keeping it neutral. So, the other part of that is if someone's rude to you, you can just excuse yourself and go away. Especially in the South, the thing about that culture of honor thing, where you need to mind your manners, it can be a little bit troublesome if you're a guy, because you need to be a little more thoughtful and careful. Because, kind of like Mr. Singh was saying, someone, let's say you like spill someone's drink, you might be in trouble. But in the South, there are a lot of ways to get in trouble in the United States. Although it's not to say that it's dangerous. Just to say that in the South, have you heard the expression Southern manners? Okay, so the good news is if you're a lady and someone is giving you trouble at a bar in the South, there are lots of guys there who would really like to help fix that problem for you. Immediately. Probably outside. Okay, so another thing about this that's kind of related to someone buying you a drink is, if someone buys you a drink, or if anyone's making you a drink, if you're a boy or a girl, you should kind of keep your eye on it. Does anyone know why? Someone might put something funky in there, right? What's that called? You can call that slipping someone a Mickey. It comes from the name of a bartender named Mickey Finn, who like 200 years ago became famous for putting people out and then taking their things. So it's really good to keep an eye on this. Actually, in Taiwan, I haven't heard of this happening that many times, only once or twice. But in America, I've heard of that happening more than once to people that I know. So kind of keep an eye on things. Which is why I want to say it's actually quite good to develop, if you're going to go to a bar, if you're going to drink socially, there's a lot of utility in that. There's a lot of like networking ability in that. So you can use it for lots of things. You can use it to make new friends. You can use it to meet new business contacts. For example, if you're an artist, it's really easy to make new contacts by kind of like, we call it schmoozing your way through. What does it mean to schmooze? It means like to come to a party and be social and like kind of like be charming, especially on purpose. Okay? Schmoozing is very useful for networking. I think the slang of that comes from the term booze, which is kind of like a rude term for alcohol. So, it's important to keep in mind that you don't really need to get drunk at a bar. You can kind of like drink your drink slowly. In fact, if you're trying to get something like social, or trying to use it for business purposes, or trying to network, it's actually much more useful to drink slowly. A lot of people starting out might go a little bit too fast. You don't need to do that. A lot of other people starting out kind of realize you can be a little more careful, be a little more thoughtful, and you can accomplish what you're trying to accomplish in a more successful way. In particular, drinking games are not something I really recommend. So be thoughtful, is what I'm saying. Two more things. One is that men are often expected to drink something that is a little bit more bitter, a little bit more biting, a little bit more straightforward in American settings. This is kind of, in Taiwan, people don't really give you grief for this. But in America, if you order like, people might call it like a girly drink or a froofy drink. If you're a dude, people might give you a hard time. A more traditionally male drink might be like a gin tonic or a martini or beer. Can't go wrong with old beer. So, same deal as in England, where you have a last call, but it's not a bell. Usually the bartender will just stand somewhere and say, last call. And that's when you can get your drink. What time do bars close in America? 2 in the morning. So what time do we begin partying in America usually? 9 or 10? Yeah, very good. What about in Taiwan? In Taiwan, when does the party like really get started? If you're out at like the Yantian. What? Exactly, it's always right at 12. But as soon as I came to Taiwan, one of the first things I noticed is at midnight on the dot, that's when people go to the dance floor and start like moving. It's like, well, the MRT is off, so I guess I'm stuck here now. In America, bars are required legally in some places, if not every places, to close at 2 in the morning. Not everybody follows these rules, but generally speaking, you're out of luck after 2. What about on Sunday? Can you buy alcohol on a Sunday? In most places, not. Actually, it's been so long since I've been to America that I had to look this up and double check if that was true or not. But it seems like, to this day, you still can't buy alcohol in most places in America on a Sunday. In Taiwan, you can just walk into 7-Eleven, get one wherever you like, and drink it wherever you like. In America, you can't do that. You have to go to a liquor store. Like in Taiwan, you go to 7-Eleven, they've got whiskey, they've got vodka. That's crazy. I've been telling people, like, when I go back to America, I think it's going to be a lot more culture shock coming back. Like, what do you mean I can't take my whiskey into McDonald's? I can't imagine McDonald's any other way now. So, anyway, bar will close at 2. Pretty much everything closes at 2. If you work in the service industry in America, and you work at night, what do you think bar rush is? It's when the bars and clubs close, and all the drunk people are on the street, and they're getting fast food on the way home. So, as a little piece of sideways advice, don't be in the street at 2 in the morning. Unless you like being flat. So the terms, taverns and pubs, saloons and bars. These terms are used more generally in America, okay? Usually the term saloon, what does old-timey mean? Old-timey means like kind of like old Western style, kind of like cowboys, or like boots like this. I'm from Texas, so I can wear these wherever I want. But a saloon is often going to be like a Western or like old style themed bar. It might have like swinging doors and be like a little bit goofy. At least where I'm from. In Texas, if you go to a saloon, it's going to be like people who drink there all think they're cowboys. A tavern or a pub. In America, if it's a pub, it's probably a gastropub, like Mr. Singh was talking about. Pubs in America are kind of like a gourmet establishment. They want to sound like special and kind of like, oh yeah, we're going to eat some pub food, that's exciting. Which is really weird because if you, in England, prior to like gastropubs, I don't think pub food was necessarily something to get excited about. Whereas in America, people would often say to me, oh, we're eating pub food tonight. Which I think is strange. But in America, that would mean like, oh, tasty hamburgers or like, actually kind of like upscale food, a little bit upscale, like upscale fried food maybe. What is upscale? Slightly better ingredients and service maybe. And a tavern in America really just means bar. So, what was Prohibition? It's one of our favorite times in American history, when we were really famously not having a lot of fun. It's from 1920 to 1933, and it's when alcohol was illegal to sell. There's a lot of, in American history, this is a really vital time. What happened in the 20s? Does anyone know? The 20s to 29s?
The Great Depression.
Close. Very, very close. Before the Great Depression, that was the Roaring 20s. The Roaring 20s were like they call it roaring 20s because like everything was great, apparently. I mean, I guess everything was so good that people didn't really need to drink. And then the Great Depression started and the great stock market crash of 1929. So actually, you're right on the nail. 1929 is right when the Great Depression started, and by 1933, we were drinking again. Actually, my theory about that would be that, I haven't checked this, so it might not be true, but when Prohibition was active, who was making money on alcohol? Making a lot of money on alcohol during Prohibition?
The black market?
Gangsters. Criminals. Do you think the government likes it when criminals are making all the money? Nobody likes it. Making money should be for honest people. Okay, so in Prohibition time, you would have a speakeasy, which is like a secret bar where you could get in and you'd know like a secret knock. So it might be like, and if you do the secret knock, they'd let you in. Now, did everybody go to a speakeasy? What kind of people went to speakeasies? Anybody? This is a time in American history when the bar was no longer a community event. It was only for rich people. Poorer people were often stuck drinking alcohol with dangerous chemicals in it, whether it was made out in a shed in someone's backyard. In America, we like to call this bathtub hooch. Or moonshine, yes. But it's called bathtub because someone might make it in a bathtub. Specifically, if it's made in a bathtub, it might be like, it's kind of some odd information maybe, but for example, you can take a bit of bread to get yeast, and you can take a bit of like different, kind of like odd household ingredients like orange peels and fruit juice. Not that I've ever done that. I've never done it. Anyway. At this time, people started protesting. They really wanted to drink beer, obviously. Isn't this a great picture? And you can see there was lots of struggle. So socially speaking, there was what's called teetotalers, okay? To this day, calling someone a teetotaler means someone who does not drink. You can also say they are on the wagon. Someone who's on the wagon, or teetotaling, does not drink. Certain religions also don't drink, and sometimes people who are religious might object to those terms. Someone who just doesn't drink because they don't want to drink is usually fine. But there was a social protest against drinking because they were saying, kind of like Mr. Singh talked about gin as the mother's ruin, where mothers might be in the wine sink, in the bar, drinking instead of taking care of their families or children. I don't quite know. With a story like that, with a story like that, as with the Prohibition era, it's interesting to wonder what is a cartoon, or what is like a story and what is not. Like, for example, this idea of the mother's ruin, quite possibly true, right? I'm certainly not saying it's not, but oftentimes these ideas of government service and social service and keeping people active and involved in things are driving forces behind propagandistic stories, okay? So, for example, in America, this is one I understand more clearly. In the case of gin, mostly I'm trying to draw attention to the way the idea is presented socially, okay? Not whether the idea is true or not, but that you will see, for example, this idea of the mother's ruin in political cartoons. You'll see this idea of the mother's ruin probably in sermons. Like, what's a sermon? Like when someone talks at a church, okay? Like when the father or the priest talks at a church, it's a sermon. Or in various social pushes towards certain kinds of behavior. In this case, not falling down drunk on gin. But in the case of Prohibition, there was a teetotaling movement. There was a movement to stop drinking that said that drinking was causing lots of society's ills. But is that the real reason for Prohibition? Many people have put forward the idea historically, not just many people actually. Historically, it's been put forward pretty well that things like Prohibition and laws determining how people can or cannot drink are actually designed to keep things controlled in a certain way. For example, prohibition did not stop everybody from drinking. It stopped certain people from selling, and it got rid of bars. Okay? Bars could not exist anymore. You couldn't meet someone in a bar and talk to them and have like a common social ground to connect with people on. Okay? Now, why would someone want that taken away? 1920s, this is industrialization, okay? Lots of companies, lots of factories are getting really involved. They've got a lot of workers. They want a lot of workers working hard. At this time in America, there were not, as you might say, like health and safety regulations in your workplace. So, and there were not working days as we understand them now, okay? So, for example, the 5-day work week, that came later. The idea of, for example, the 8-hour working day or the 9 to 5, that came later. At this time, a lot of people were being worked really hard, and there were a lot of systems that kept them in that position. Another example of that would be what's called the company store, which is where you live in a city, you work for a company, but that city is entirely owned by the company. They don't pay you in money, they pay you in company credit. You buy everything from the company store at the company city. Does that make sense? Okay, so if that's your environment, do you want your workers to hang out and talk to each other and potentially revolt? Maybe not. This is kind of like how, say, 1,000 years ago, coffee would be banned by certain, maybe not 1,000 years ago, say 500 years ago, coffee was banned by some kings. They didn't want people getting all hopped up and sharing radical ideas, okay? Coffee houses used to be kind of like a radical place. And maybe in some places they still are, but in Taipei, I seem to see people mostly reading books. So, the movement in Prohibition that many people don't quite realize, even Americans, is that it was a movement against bars and saloons. There are teetotalers and people who marched for the moralism of alcohol use, who moralized on the subject, but actually the major impetus or the major drive was that aspect of control. That's the same reason that we often think of Sundays as being a time when it's not legal to open a bar, not legal to buy alcohol, but actually it goes a little bit deeper than that, okay? Let's say you're a migrant worker, an immigrant worker in America at, let's say, like 50, 60, 70 years ago. What's your day off? Sunday. So if your day off is on Sunday, and all the bars just happen to be closed, and you can't buy alcohol on the day that it's your day off, it puts certain guides into your life. Certain privileges and certain opportunities, like the opportunity to connect socially and organize, are denied to you. Okay. So, you can see here, speakeasy. In compliance with the 18th Amendment, no intoxicating liquor allowed on the premises. And you can see here that they were following the rules very carefully. But as you can see, actually, this is a case of privilege. These are people who are really well-to-do, and they're really comfortable, and they think the law is funny because they don't have to follow it. If you're photographed doing something, are you afraid of being caught doing it? Maybe not. Can anyone tell what's happening here? This is kind of a cool picture. I think it's kind of hard to understand. This is the police emptying wine right into the streets, and it's flowing like a river. It's a very sad day. Okay, so, a few more quick notes about bars. In America, children are not allowed in bars. Typically. Almost no bars. If they sell food, maybe. Or if they're the handsome and charming young son of a musician. But generally, no kids in bars, okay? When I was a kid, if I wanted to go into a bar, I can't remember when this was said to me, actually, but I can remember someone telling me, you have no reason to be in there. And that's probably right. In southern states or in the country, this idea might be looser. Another thing is, in a bar in America, you got a bouncer at the door. Maybe not, pubs have bouncers, Mr. Singh? No. Bars in America have bouncers. Okay? A bouncer is a big, tough guy, kind of like this, stands like this, walks like this, and tells you when it's time to get out. Clubs have, In Taiwan, bars won't have bouncers, but clubs will have bouncers. If you get a little bit too rowdy, they might tell you to take a hike, which means to leave. Excuse me. Okay. Respect the bouncer. In American bars, there are always TVs. Always. It's awful. In British pubs, there will usually not be television, I don't think, unless it's a sports bar, which is not a pub anyway. As you can tell, I really love sports bars and television. So, a quick note on slang. Mr. Singh mentioned that in England, if someone is really drunk, you might say that they're pissed. If you say, so my British friends in Taiwan might say, oh, I'm really pissed. And an American would say, what are you pissed about? Why are you so mad? Because pissed in America means to be angry, pissed off. In America, instead of saying pissed, we'll say, I'm smashed, wrecked, hammered, toasted, soused, phased, or drunk. You can be, if you're being polite, you can use the word tipsy. People might feel, Max, you were so drunk. I was tipsy. In slang, you might say blackout, right? Blackout is like when you don't remember anything. I don't recommend it. Don't do that. Not a good idea. So, did you know that in America, about 60, 70 years ago, it was normal to have beer for breakfast? People were just like, okay, have a quick one before I'm off to the office. I found that the other day. I thought that was really great. I wouldn't do that, actually. It sounds great when you're like 19 or 20. Once you're 28 or getting into your 30s, you're like, maybe I need to be productive. And there's one other note, is dry counties, which is a very sad thing. So when I was a young boy, me and my family would sometimes go out into the country. And I couldn't understand, but for my father, going out into the country required a lot of planning. He had to go get some special things, and if he forgot to go get special things, he might be kind of sad. And that's because in some parts of the South, especially, there are what are called dry counties. Dry means they do not sell alcohol anywhere. There is no fun. I'm just kidding. No, but there's no alcohol being sold there in a dry county. Okay. So, before I wrap up, are there any questions? What, you got questions? This is it. You just say pour beer.
As in,
But if it's pulled out, yeah. Even if it is pulled out, you still call it. You still say pour. But excuse me. Yes, I understand. Excuse me. It depends on the bar. Some bars might have it in the back or have it in like a case and they'll get it out. But generally, having a tap is considered like better. It's considered like upper class or like more favorable. Guys, come on! You gave him like 3 questions. You like him better than me?